Okay, welcome to week 4 of college football primer. Um, I recorded this last night and then I had like an allergy attack or something and was sneezing and congested. And then I was like, man, I'm gonna have to record this again. And it turned out I did not even record anything. So yeah, we're on the struggle bus going into week 4. So lots to talk about, even though last week, week 3, was supposed to be garbage. It turned out to be pretty legit. So let's go back and talk about kind of how things broke down, and then we'll look ahead to this week. And first, we'll talk about the game of the week. Let me make sure I've got this real quick. And that was Kansas State versus Missouri. That one we like nailed, and that was a game that was oddly like not again like this is the goal. People, college game day was in Colorado, and I get it. Totally get it. Like, that's where the show is. Okay, but that game was not supposed to be what it was. And we'll talk about that because that was our nightcap. But these were two undefeated teams, rivals to an extent, SEC Big 12. And yeah, it turned out to be like a great game. The halftime score was 17-14. Um, At no point was there more than a touchdown lead. It went back and forth and then ended with a 61-yard field goal from Missouri. And as time was expiring. So, like, you can't get better than that. I thought Kansas State looked good. I thought it was one of those games where it felt like Missouri had more to prove than Kansas State, the Big 12 champion title holders, right? Again, no one talks about them that way. And so I felt like Missouri just needed to pull us out at home. And it was just like a great game. Ball was thrown like all around the field. Both teams look really scrappy. So game of the week held up the dud, and we'll talk about this game a little later. But most intriguing matchup was number 8 Washington at Michigan State. And I mean, in some sense, it was definitely intriguing. It's like, all right, what is Michigan State going to put on the table after a week of tumult? And the answer is garbage. And the other one is that like Washington is really that good. It's going to be interesting to see the Pac-12 play out as the season goes on because I know everyone's talking about Caleb Williams, and we'll talk about Michael Penix Jr. in a little bit, but Michigan State's bad, but Michael Penix Jr. has been consistently just lighting people up. Best backyard brawl. I don't know how we could not pick West Virginia at Pitt because that is known as the backyard brawl in the way that, like, you know, the Red River rivalry is OU and Texas. This is the backyard brawl. The university campuses are less than an hour apart, but the score was quite far apart. Pitt never really had a chance in this one. I mean, they did, but they didn't look competitive at all. 6-17 was the final at home. West Virginia kind of needed this win as well. Both teams were 1-1 going in. Um, West Virginia is 2-1 and just looks a little bit better. Um, I mean, the score, I say like Pitt didn't have a chance, but the score was 6-7 at half, but it didn't seem like they were gonna pull it out. So that game was a little rough, especially for a night game. But that was the warm up to Colorado State, Colorado game ending at 1:30 in the morning, depending on where you're at. Um, I mean, I think the one thing, okay, it's like Deion Sanders, great. Colorado, great. Everyone and the energy and just everything we love about college football and the pageantry and the scenery and like when they had college game day there, it was like the mountains were in the background and the rock shows up. Like it is a scene meant for social media. And I think that's one of the other things when people talk about how polarizing Deion Sanders may be. which, like, again, I think everyone knows my view of, like, hey, you're doing a great job, but I would have done it another way, but that's also why I'm not a coach. Um, and I don't have Super Bowl rings, and I'm not a Hall of Famer, and I didn't play in the NFL, so okay. But he's catering to a crowd of like kids that like want flash and clout and like views and likes and tweets, and it's just like, cool, come to Boulder and look at this view and look at game day and look at the Rock and look at all these guys in the sideline and the pregame and the postgame. And there's like always someone following him around with a cell phone, like recording everything and his sons and ranking. I mean, like it goes on and on. And I don't want to say they haven't beaten anyone because TCU, they beat them on the road, but their defense, it was porous without Travis Hunter. And now that he's out, dude, and looking ahead, it's not one of the games of the week or most interesting, but they're playing Oregon on Saturday on the road. That spread is 21. And if they are competitive at all, it's a miracle. A miracle. That's okay, I've been wrong, but like that's really where like the season starts for them. I say that. That's not true. TCU really is like a legitimate win, but they allow a ton of points. Nebraska can't score points, but between Colorado State and TCU, that's roughly, let's see, 80 points that they've allowed to be scored. So our nightcap, Colorado State versus Colorado, which I thought was just going to be kind of the show, stay for the show, even though stay for dessert and drinks, even though the main course was meh. Like the main course was delicious. I am now 1-3 in bet of the week. I said Georgia would cover 27.5 at home. And here is again my like argument. First of all, Georgia's defense comes out flat. Their offense comes out flatter. They make Spencer Rattler look like a decent quarterback, which he's not. So it was 14-3. South Carolina Gamecocks at half. 14-3. The score line for the second half was 21-0. So if we had our second half in the first half, we're fine. Spencer Rattler finished 22 of 42, 256 yards, one TD, two interceptions. Dude's garbage, trash. And it was not his fault. I mean, he's got like one receiver and the O line's like bad or whatever. But I know that my bets are bad and I just need to start like being like, ooh, I like this line and betting like against myself and putting that out. But this week we're gonna find that I just am not doing that. I'm incapable. So last week was good. Game of the week, good. Nightcap, good. Backyard brawl, that was the best rivalry of the weekend, so it is what it is. Most intriguing matchup sucked, and then best bet. So 50-50, a little worse than 50-50, but um, we are looking ahead now to this week. Before we do, let's start with top 10. It's mostly unchanged. I think again, like if anyone is rightly being like, dude, what is this guy doing? That's a good question. Excuse me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a fan. But someday I'm gonna get this right and people are gonna be like, I'm gonna listen to that weird dude talk about college football. But I do think that like the way the top 10, I mean, I guess there were no big upsets, but all right, let's go through it. Number one, Georgia. Don't care about what happened. They came out, they were flat, 2:30. I mean, like, whatever. They knew they had the game. They didn't have to worry, and then their coach yelled at them at half, and they took care of business. Number one, they've been number one. Number two, Michigan. They were number two last week. They looked great against Central Michigan. Not amazing, but good. Three, Ohio State. Offense kicked into gear against Toledo, I believe. Cool. Florida State. Touch and go against Boston College. They had the game in hand, then Boston College came back. Doesn't matter. They're still at four. Five, Texas, Wyoming, cool. Okay, same thing we talked about with Georgia. Rough first half, brought it together in the second. That's going to happen. Especially coming off winning on the road in Tuscaloosa. You want them to get hyped for Wyoming? Come on. So, fine. Change. Whoop, change. Okay, Washington is up from 7-6. Utah, again, looked a little rough. last week. They weren't like great. I'm like, who did they play last week? I kind of forget. Oh, Weber State. Yeah, it was like that game was a little close for a little bit. Um, in the first quarter, I'm sorry, it was 17-7 at half. So it was like, and then it's just like pattern, right? 17-7. What's going on? Then they shut him down in the second half, right? That's what teams do. But I penalized them for that because it's Weber State, so we don't need to do that. Next we have. I just lost my little spot here. So we were with Utah. Now we're with. I'm sorry. Utah was at 7. Washington 6. 8. Penn State looked good against Purdue on the road. They look really good. They're a team that could move up a lot very soon. And then number 10, I'm sorry, number 9, I skipped USC because they're garbage and they didn't play, but you don't play, you don't lose spots. I'm really hoping someone takes care of them soon. But number 10, Notre Dame. They also looked great. So Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Texas, Washington, Utah, Penn State, USC, Notre Dame. I think that lines up. So if you're like, hey, what's this guy doing right? I feel like my top 10 is just holding it together, even though Alabama was number 2 last week. So let's get to overachieved, underachieved last week. Um, let's start with underachieved. Do you want to go under or over? Let's go over and then go underachieved. Overachieved. Pac 12 is overachieving bigly, in the words of Trump. This is how you know I need sleep. I'm like, oh man, that fascist guy over here. Um, there are 8 teams of the 12 that are in the top 25. Let's list them: USC, University of Washington, Oregon, Utah, Oregon State, Washington State, UCLA, and Colorado. That's amazing. And we're going to talk, well, we're not going to talk about it with the SEC we talked about last week, but again, besides LSU had a good week last week, Georgia's fine, Bama looked like trash. Um, everyone talks about the SEC. They look so, I mean, they're top heavy. And the conference that everyone's picking apart is now like the most dominant conference. It's like with the best quarterbacks. It's amazing. They're like what the Big 12 was just a few years ago. And they're just a lot of fun to watch. I mean, I hate USC, really hate USC, and their defense is lousy, but fun to watch. Washington, fun to watch. Oregon, fun. Utah, I love how Utah plays. Anyway, they're all fun. Colorado, fun. UCLA, Chip Kelly, fun. Man, it is like Beach Boy fun out there. So I look forward to seeing those teams play. One of the games that we're not going to talk about that's coming up this week that I am pumped about, and it's not Oregon, Colorado, because again, I think that's going to be a slaughter. At 6:30 Central Time, or 6, um, Oregon State and Washington State, the two like of the 3 leftovers of realignment, are playing each other, and they're both ranked. Washington State is hosting Oregon State. I think it's going to be a great game. Like, I really do think that's going to be a fun, legitimate, interesting Pullman, Washington, old fashioned, just like shootout. I wish it were a little later so it'd be Pac 12 after dark. Just classic stuff. Um, but yeah, dude, kudos to the Pac 12. They're overachieving, especially when you have these games like what again, Utah, first week of the season beat Florida. That's what we're moving on to next in a second because I think they overachieved against Tennessee. But like Oregon, Utah beats them. Washington beats Michigan State. Like you have a lot of teams. Colorado beating TCU. It's really just like been across conference. Seeing these teams just kind of go to work. USC just beating up on little babies. San Diego State and San Jose State. What's wrong with you? Soft. Okay, 2, Bill Napier and Florida overachieved. Here's what's sad. This was my Tennessee was a 7-point favorite on the road against Florida, and I was like, I like that. I want to take Tennessee to cover because Florida's garbage, and they looked so bad against Utah. And what happens? I show that I don't know what I'm doing. You should always bet against me. But they took it to Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee was out of it from the jump. The swamp was rocking in a way it hasn't been rocking in a long time. So Florida overachieved. I think they're going to be interesting if they can keep it up when they play Georgia. I don't know if they play Alabama this year. Let me look that up because people have nothing better to do if they're listening to me. So we're just going to give them the answers right here so they don't have to. Alabama plays A&M and Mississippi State and LSU and Kentucky, so they don't play Florida. That would have been an interesting game because you have Nick Saban versus the world. Let me pull up Florida's situation right here because I think the East is pretty soft, just like most of the SEC is soft. Okay. Oh yeah. So one of the things is they got next week Charlotte, the week after Kentucky, the week after Vandy, so they could go into South Carolina with only one loss. Then they do play Georgia the 28th, Halloween weekend. That's going to be awesome. And is that in Tallahassee? Yeah. So that's going to be sweet. Um, but I do think Georgia is going to take care of business there. But you could see Florida football maybe having a nice little comeback here. What is going on with my computer? Just a second. Yeah. Oh, and Florida LSU. Ooh, and Florida State. Wow, never mind. So he's got a long road ahead of the last 5 games of the season: Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, and Florida State. It's gonna be sweet. Florida's gonna be a good game. All right. So, but they overachieved. Good for them. They looked good. They ran the ball. They were aggressive. And then finally, my Washington brother, Michael Penix Jr. Um, Man, that guy. I know everyone's hyping up Caleb Williams, and that's fine. But what I like about this is he's staying with guys he's been with. He's he I know he transferred in, but he was there last year. I guess Caleb Williams was too. I hate Caleb Williams, so sorry, I'm biased. But this stat line last week against Michigan State was 27 to 35, 473 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 77 completion percentage. His season so far is 84 of 113, 74% completion percentage with 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 1 interception in 3 games. Love it. Dude, I mean, I think they look really good. They looked good last year. I forget which game it was. I want to say it was Boise State, but that's probably wrong. It was a game I think I picked that they wouldn't cover. And they just dude, he blew them up. Blew them. They are airing it out. Lockheed Martin needs to start sponsoring Washington because they are just dropping bombs on people. All right, trigger warning. Anyway, so those are our three overachieved last week. Florida, Pac-12, Michael Penix Jr. Underachieved. The Big 12 is garbage. No, why? Why? Talk about, man. I think a lot of people were ready for this new Big 12 with BYU coming in, with Houston coming in, with Cincinnati coming in, and UCF. UCF has looked good combined with OU and Texas. And I think the president of the Big 12 was just kind of yeah, those new guys. Those new guys are totally going to show them. We're going to show Texas and OU who's boss. Because again, OU had a down year last year. Texas was fine, 4 losses. It's not working out very well, and I want it to work out. I think I definitely want it to work out. So first, K State loses Mizzou. Again, not a bad loss, but they were favored. I think they're a better team. I mean, they lose by one 61-yard field goal. If you're anyway, say if you're the head coach for Kansas State, you're yeah, let them kick it, see what happens, and they lose. Some wackadoo stuff. Cincinnati. Cincy lost Luke Fickle to Wisconsin, and you can see how much better Wisconsin is this year, and you can see how much worse Cincinnati is, and um, how the portal like really affects when these coaches leave. Like a coach would leave and guys would mostly have to stay around. Um, and like you get stuff this year, obviously like Texas State and Colorado and Deion Sanders, we were like, y'all get out. But I doubt the new coach for Cincinnati was like, hey, all of Luke Fickle's guys, get out of here. They lost to Miami of Ohio. Ugh. At home, bro. Iowa State, Matt Campbell versus Ohio lost at home. And there's footage of this guy. Like Iowa State's like going back, um, like not through a tunnel, but around on the side. There's this green grass. And they're just, walking by. And this guy just randomly is like, oh man, he's yelling stuff out at them, but like not like yelling, just like raising his voice. And he goes, Matt, you're on the hot seat. Matt Campbell, you're on the hot seat. And he like turns and starts walking away. And Campbell turns around and is like, what you say to me? But and the players have to hold him back. And it's like, oh man, like you're letting that guy get to you. I mean, I'd be pretty upset and like jaded and so anyway, you've got a problem. Iowa State used to be kind of one of those Big 12 up and comers who gave OU a run for their money, Oklahoma State a run for their money. Um, and they're not going to do that anymore. Matt Campbell could have had a pick of like almost any job he wanted. He was, I think, in the running for the Notre Dame job. So anyway, they're in trouble. And then I don't like, I talked about Mike Gundy on here, the Oklahoma State head coach, the second longest tenured head coach in football. That may not last much longer. Southern Alabama came in there and just manhandled Oklahoma State. And just like all the other games we're talking about, when we're talking about Utah and Weber State, and like, hey, like, why is this so close? And then they pull out in the second half, and then Georgia pulls it out in the second half, and like we have these games where it's just down games, and you know you expect the other team to kind of come out. Um, that's what it was like watching the Oklahoma State scoreline and seeing Southern Alabama just go up, keep going up, and you're like, again, they lost Sanders, their quarterback, to Ole Miss, and it's just like, who wants to play for Mike Gundy and go to Stillwater? I don't know. But that's really disappointing because I would say Oklahoma State, I guess they're behind TCU and Kansas State, so they're like the middle of the pack, but they're usually very competitive, and that was at home. I mean, and what's interesting is I was trying to get a comparison of like what is Alabama State ranked because they're in the Sun Belt. They're not like an FBS school. They're like legit Sun Belt. Um, they are ranked 52nd now, according to Versus Sports Simulator. But it was really, excuse me, it's really interesting to look at this simulator because on the one hand, like who's in their top 10? Let me read their top 10. This is weird, but maybe this is AI shit. I don't know. Okay, let me read the top 10. Georgia, Texas 2, Ohio State 3, Michigan 4, Penn State 5, Washington 6, Utah 7. That's pretty close to what I got, by the way. So, you know, Florida State 8, North Carolina 9, what? Alabama 10, Notre Dame 12th, and then like South USC 17th, right? Anyway, so you got that in the top 20, sorry, top 10. Um, but then you get like farther down, they have SMU 68th. So let me go where, first of all, they have Oklahoma State after their loss. They have them ranked 60th. Right above them is Coastal Carolina, fellow Sunbelt team to our South Alabama focal. Okay, here's what it was because I'm looking at yesterday. All right, let me read this. Let me This either I don't know if what I'm about to read validates this website that I just found or totally invalidates it. All right, let me see if there's one. Okay. 46th Wisconsin. And by the way, I said they're undefeated. They're 2-1. Wisconsin's 46. Arkansas 47. James Madison, Sun Belt 48. Rutgers 49. Rutgers is 3-0, and they've been doing pretty well. So 49. Here's where I'm like, oh my God. Okay, validates or does not. Texas A&M is number 50. 51 West Virginia, 52 South Alabama, 53 Boise. He keeps scrolling down the list. There's another one in here that I'm like crazy. 65 Texas Tech, 68 SMU. What? Baylor 80. Iowa State 85. Good Lord. Where's another one that's kind of just like this is just too wild. I think everything else kind of checks out. Like where you're like, okay, y'all are just really bad. New Mexico brings up the rear. But yeah, like totally wild. Florida on here 30. I think everything else checks. I like Tulane at 23. That's pretty sweet. So yeah, like cool little list, but um trash, dude. Oklahoma State, trash, totally underachieved. Again, that website is versus Sports Simulator FBS rankings. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. All right. Nick Saban underachieved. Okay, I just saw this before I came on air. I'm doing air quotes right now. Apparently, there's a conspiracy theory out there that when people were bitching about Milrow. So I'm so sorry. I wrote it down. Milrow. I wrote it down wrong because I'm exhausted. I slept with my contacts in last night because I'm like that much of an idiot. Okay, he was not good against Texas. He wasn't bad. He just wasn't great. So he benches Jalen Milrow against the Buffalo, University of Southern Florida, and starts Buckner and Simpson to prove that Jalen is the better of the two. Well, you also proved that not Nick Saban, you also proved that Alabama is like in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. Oh, let's go back to our versus simulator. Where is Southern Florida? Control F. Southern. Whoa, whoa. Did you all hear that? No, there's a weird noise. Southern. Here we go. Southern Miss. Oh, they don't. I did not have it. USF. USF. No. Well, I'm gonna try one more time. Florida. We've got so many Florida. Central Florida, Florida, South Florida. Not Southern Florida, South Florida. 106. Think about that. The 106th one team in the nation, American Athletic Conference. They're 1-2. They're also up 11th from last week, probably because of their performance against Alabama. So, oh my God, horrible. So whatever he was trying to do, he looked like a freaking idiot. Um, like on the one hand, I think one of the things is when like the last thing I always wanted to not deal with was facing Nick Saban after they lost. And if they can't put that together, like this year, then they're going to be in trouble. But the worry is like again, he's a good coach. I mean, again, this isn't their year, and they're underachieving, and you can't go to like the 111th team in the country and just put up a goose egg or like 3 points in the first half. And then finally, Virginia Tech. Let me just pull this up real quick because it was one thing where I'm like, oh my God, like Virginia Tech has used to be like one of the bigger ACC programs for a long time until Beamer retired. Um, they lost to Purdue and they got their butt beat by Rutgers. And this game's going to be on ESPN2 this week. I would definitely check it out. Virginia Tech versus Marshall at noon Eastern is going to be a really interesting game. Again, going back to our versus simulator, I'm so sorry for the people who are listening. Let's just go Marshall. Where are we at, Marshall? Marshall. 66. Tech. There's always Techs I should do. 66. Virginia Tech. 103. So there's a really, if this simulator is correct, dude, they are going to be stomped. And they've just been underachieving for a while, but you really hate to see them like, and I like all of a sudden I'm like, let me look it up. I have it right in front of me, and I didn't even see it. Um, I mean, even their scoreline against Old Dominion's kind of rough, 36-17. So ACC stuff, Clemson's down, Duke's up, Florida State's up, I guess, but and my Miami, who knows what they're at right now, but underachieved. Big 12, Nick Saban for Jaden. Yeah. All right. Um, I think the SEC is just struggling in general. If you think about the way Georgia opened with South Carolina, the way Alabama played, and then Tennessee, those are like their top teams. Tennessee going down in Florida. Um, Not great. And again, my whole argument with that conference is like top to bottom, they are not the best conference. They just have two or three teams that win the national title every year, which it's like, okay, well, that's the point. Yeah, I know. Well, when Georgia or Bama gets more five stars than any other conference, like, what are you supposed to do? Um, like that doesn't mean from top to bottom you're the best conference. I think the Big Ten has had that, and this year it's the Pac-12, right? Like, so you can see that, like, it's obviously the Pac-12. When we're talking about Alabama and the issues that they have, I saw this in the Athletic that is insane, and it may be like a sign of like Nick Saban just being like at some point you hit a wall. Like the fact that this guy has been able to relate to kids, like 16-year-olds, because he's got to go recruit them for as long as he has. He is 71, 71 years old. He was born in 1951. That's when a computer like filled floor of a building. Now it's like you can fit it in the palm of your hand. Okay, so I think it's where we may be getting close to that time. Like he's never gone more than 3 years without winning a title. I don't think he's ever performed this badly after a loss. The last time they lost at home, like all these numbers are coming out. I wish I had them all in front of me, but I'm like, where did people get these numbers? But I got numbers for you. 2023 Crimson Tide has the deepest collection of high school recruits ever assembled. Echo, echo, echo. And it says like, and this is according to 24/7 Talent Composite. Let me read that one more time. The 2023 Crimson Tide is the deepest collection of high school recruits ever assembled. And it is led by the greatest coach of all time. That's editorial from The Athletic. Those two facts alone should have made Alabama a layup to be in the top four preseason. But a lot of people said no. I put him in there because, again, like, dude, I don't want to bet against this guy. Anyway, it may be time to bet against Nick Saban because he's just not like it's weird when you can see things are like not there. It's like the engine of a car is not starting. Um, Colorado is I mean, the story that just keeps on giving. Um, Part of me is super bitter because I mean, I know Colorado is not like a hidden gem or anything. Like that campus is beautiful, but I just feel like everything now is so about backdrop and Instagram ability, Instagram ability or whatever, TikTok ability. Um, that what am I trying to say here? It's just nice when a school or something is there and there's not all this hype attached to it. Um, if that makes any sense. Like, let's think of the Jets. Total pivot. But like the Jets, no one cares about the Jets. But all of a sudden with this Aaron Rodgers stuff, it's like you just hear about the Jets ad nauseum and like, oh, what about this? And what are they gonna do? And like even with the injuries, like this and that, and we're talking about the no one cares about the Jets, but they care about Aaron Rodgers, so we have to care about the Jets. And it's like with Colorado, Colorado's beautiful without all the noise. And when you add the noise, I feel like it makes it less beautiful. Like it takes away from the scenic beauty of the area and the prestigious academic reputation of the school. I'm not saying what some people may think I'm saying. I'm saying like what when we connect it to like with the Jets, sometimes there's so much around situation that you just lose sight of what actually is going on. Because Colorado, I mean, okay, they may be okay, they're not a football school. They're not. They're not a football school. They may become one with the way this is going, but like I would say Stanford is not a football school, right? Let me think of another like school that's kind of like big Duke. Duke's not a football school. They got a great football team. I mean, they've pumped out like Daniel Jones, and they've been competitive in a way they haven't in forever. They're not a football school. Like Duke is a basketball school, but they're just like a school. Like they could go out and play football and do whatever. So I think it's just like something about that with Colorado. Um, it's so amazing what Deion Sanders has done to make that a scene that it takes away from, in my mind, just the scene that was Colorado before of like, wow, look at this beautiful campus and this beautiful town and this beautiful city and this like minus the football. I may sound like a freaking moron by saying that, but like it's become such noise. And I posted it on Twitter, like one of the betting apps was like, which team is better? The 2019 or was it 2021 LSU Tigers that won the national title with Joe Burrow, or the 2023 Colorado, Buffalo? Like, are we serious here? Okay. So anyway, but Colorado, I mean, we'll see how they do against Oregon. I mean, if they beat Oregon, I don't know what you say. I mean, I really don't. You might as well put Deion Sanders on your shoulders and carry him into like some Hall of Fame or something. All right, let's talk about this week. I've been talking long enough about last week. Let's talk about best bet. So, I'm horrible, but I feel like I'm so close. That's why I keep like I want to switch. So, I just keep it the same. And those of you who just bet against me, just keep making your money. But the team that I'm picking to cover has covered all three games. They are 3-0 against the spread. That is Oklahoma. 9.5 point favorites against the lowly Cincinnati Bearcats on the road. Defense, dude, the defense that we have, I say defense Oklahoma has right now is the best in 2 decades. They are really good. The offense is deceptively good. Um, I think Dylan Gabriel's getting more comfortable, especially a little more comfortable than he was last week against SMU. But they are again, they're doing things that really good teams do, which some of these really good teams last week didn't do, which is just run the score up against bad opponents. Washington is a great example of a team that was just like, who the hell is this? Michigan State, wow, pew pew pew, done. Um, so I think that's why, like, when people look at Alabama or Georgia, um, Texas to an extent. It's kind of like you should be running these guys over, and we're not. So that's again best bet. If you want to take Cincy to cover, go for it. Um, but they're three. OU's 3-0. Venables knows the game he's playing, which is make it look flashy and pretty, and they're doing that. So try it. Best nightcap is not a true nightcap, and I guess I am talking about this. Sorry. We talked about it earlier in the program. In the spirit of Pac-12 After Dark, Oregon State number 14 in the country at 21 Washington State, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Fox. That game is Oregon has Oregon State favored. So another great game is usually, or another sign of a great game is when the favorite team is the road team. So that should be a good game. I also think Fox like milks the commercials, so you may have to sit for like 4 hours. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry about that. But I really think that's the best game. There's nothing great. I think USC is playing some nobody. I think they're gonna put up all these points, whatever. So best nightcap starts at 6 Central. It'll be over, but around 9:30, so you'll be able to get to bed. Most intriguing matchup. This one's legit. By the way, oh, we'll get to this in a second. Sorry. Florida State at Clemson. Again, road team favored 2.5. Florida State should run over Clemson. But again, we thought a lot of things last week. Um, and it'll be interesting to see how well Clemson can move the ball against Florida State. Because it just doesn't seem like things are clicking. Um, and I just think it's going to be a really interesting ACC battle for like whoever comes out on top of that one's in the driver's seat. Best backyard brawl, SMU at TCU, which I think this is the last time they play each other because SMU's ACC bound and TCU's bitter that they're not little like SMU's not their little brother anymore. So everyone's throwing a hissy fit, just like A&M and Texas. That game's also at 11. TCU is favored in this one by 6.5, which is like less than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be favored by a lot more. The other thing that's interesting is like SMU played really well against Oklahoma. I just think our defense shut them down, but they do have a really good offense, and their defense isn't bad. According to our Versus Sports Simulator, SMU is 68th. TCU is 36th. So TCU should run away with it, but wouldn't be surprised if SMU made this really close. So that backyard brawl, I mean, they're just like 30 miles apart or something like that. So that's as backyard as it gets. And then finally, our best game of the week, Ohio State, favored on the road in South Bend against Notre Dame at 6:30 on NBC Eastern Standard Time. Um, I actually no, let me correct that because part of me feels like 7 o'clock game. But I don't want to. I'm like college football primer. Like, why would I get this wrong? So I'm like doubting myself already. Um, yeah, that's 7:30 Eastern kick. Yeah, saying so I got that right. Okay, 7:30 kick, 6:30 Central. Great stats. Since 1994, Notre Dame is 4-19 when playing as an AP top 10 team against another top 10 team. Since 1994, Notre Dame is 4-19 when they're top 10 and they play another top 10 team. That's why everyone hates Notre Dame because they're so disappointing. Prior to 1994, they were 14-3-1 in 18 games where it was top 10 for top 10. So they really need to right ship, and I think they can't. Like, if there's going to be any Notre Dame team at any time, at any place, it's going to be a South Bend night game on NBC against Ohio State with a new quarterback versus like a very veteran quarterback. Um, so that game, I'm pretty pumped. I think a lot of people should be pumped about that game. That is kind of classic. I know Notre Dame's not a Big Ten team, but classic Midwestern football match. Harkening back to an era where Notre Dame was actually bread and butter of college football. And I hate to be one of those like antiquated dudes who's like, "Oh, college football is just better when Notre Dame," but it is. Like it's kind of like baseball's better when the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Cardinals and the Cubs are good. Um, I don't know any fan who could argue that's not the case. Like it's just some teams have this embodiment and spirit and zest and tradition to them that is like, yeah, when they're good, things are good. So I hope Notre Dame wins. I don't know who's gonna win. Um, I don't. I just hope it's not a disappointing game, but I think it's gonna be a good one. That's best bet. So that is my take on last week and this upcoming week. Please make sure that you're on the Instagram and the X, Twitter. I had a thing on TikTok I never figured out like what to post because I hate doing the little like, "Hi, I'm so and so." But I started to get on it like more and more, dude. That thing, man, if you're on that app, you got to get off that app. Um, oh, and with they had like this thing that I kept watching where it was a Lana Del Rey song, forget which one. Um, it, I wasn't born to die, but it's from that album. And it would show like people from Boy Meets World and like their age in like 95 and like a clip from them. And then their age now. Dude, when did everybody get so old? I'm like, oh my God, this is like right around the corner. I'm gonna be like 50. So like it freaked the crap out of me. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this is coming. So and it just kept coming different like Cheers, the Cheers cast, like Ted Danson's like in his 70s now or something. Anyway, it was freaky. So I got off that, and then you have all these weird, it was just people dancing and stuff. So anyway, I'm off TikToky, never really figured it out. Follow me on the gram. Thanks, three people who listen. I'm trying to get better. I try to look up stuff for like videos. Everything costs money. So like we're just trying to get better at this part, and then we'll get like a little flashy on the other part. But anyway, see you later. Bye.